Guys podcast. Oh my gosh, the Signal Gate thing. Oh, it's just driving us crazy. And now your hosts, Josh Hammerling and Max McGuire.
Welcome back. Another edition of the Right Guys podcast. My name is Max McGuire here with Mr. Producer Josh Hammerling. Missed a couple days, unfortunately. I got sick. Now my kid is sick. Kid has hand, foot, and mouth disease. So he's Speckles. We're calling him Speckles. Yesterday, we took him to the doctor because you got it. There's measles going around. You got to just get it checked out.
I saw that. Lots of measles.
He calls himself, he says he's a Dalmatian now. So that's fun. He thinks he's 101 Dalmatians.
All right.
So apologies. We weren't live on Monday and we're a little late today. Had to work the schedule around the sick kid. But yeah, no, this Signal Gate. Signal Gate. Man. Is that what they're officially calling it? That's just what I called it in our title.
I've heard, well, actually, no, I think here's the first place I've seen it called Signal Gate, but it's been all over the news like it's Watergate. And it's not a Watergate.
Other people are calling it. Other people are calling it Signal Gate.
All right.
Of course, anytime there's a scandal, you add a gate. You add a gate to it. For everyone who has been not paying attention, what essentially happened is while in the lead up to the Trump administration's bombing of the Houthi terrorists in Yemen, there was a signal chat created, basically linking together the top people in government. J.D. Vance was on it. Hegseth was on it. Different heads of agencies, departments were on it, and their underlings. Trump's chief of staff was on it. And accidentally added to this signal chat was Jeffrey Goldberg, who apparently on Signal just goes by JG. JG. And that is likely why he got added, because they were probably trying to add someone else who was JG. It's just so dumb.
It is.
Here, I'll share the screen and then we can keep going.
It's crazy they're using Signal, right? Of everything out there. It's encrypted.
It makes sense. It makes sense because it's encrypted, right? So the goal is this is the Houthi PC small group. They create a group text, basically.
Yeah.
And it's encrypted, which means that people on the outside can't spy on it. The only weakness is if you invite people on the outside into the group, then they can see it. And if that person decides to violate the Espionage Act and publish it on their website, right? That's the other side of this. We'll get to that in a little bit. Jeffrey Goldberg is claiming, I got classified information. What does he do with it? He hits publish. As it turns out, his only defense now is for the Trump administration to be telling the truth that it isn't classified. Otherwise, he broke a ton of laws by publishing this. And no, the Pentagon Papers case from the Supreme Court probably doesn't cover this because this wasn't a whistleblower giving him access to this information. This was him wrongly sitting on a group chat way long and taking it himself, which we'll talk about. But yeah, so we have Mike Waltz. He was the admin of this. And you see he added JG. The crazy thing is, apparently, and this is learning experience. We're going to learn. Been at government a few years. We're going to learn. Apparently, not only was Jeffrey Goldberg in it or whatever, not only was he in it, he had the ability to invite other people. So he could have invited the entire Washington Post editorial staff. He could have invited anyone. So got to button that up. Trump team. Yeah. Button it up. But he's there. Someone named Scott B., Walker Barrett, Pete Hegseth was on there. Dan Katz was on there. You had Susie Wiles, John Radcliffe, Alex Wong. A lot of people on there talking.
Vice President.
J.D. Vance.
All right.
J.D. Vance on it. Where did I miss his?
Yeah, he was on there. He was at the very bottom. He was near the bottom.
Very bottom.
Yeah,
right there. J.D. Vance. And it is incredibly easy. Like the really hard part about this is someone added him JG. There was probably someone who was supposed to be on the chat who goes by JG. Yeah. And just to show you, I went into my Signal. I'm not going to show you my phone number or anything. And went to the set up your profile bit. I turned myself into Pete Hegseth. just to show you how easy it is to do. Just to show you how easy it is to do. And so what happens is when you want to create one of these groups, you'll go into your phone and it won't show you the phone number. It will show you the image that they've chosen for themselves and the name that they've chosen for themselves. So if I was in let's imagine I was in Mike Waltz's phone right now.
Yeah.
And I had days ago changed myself to Pete Hegseth. If I was just in his phone, he would be scrolling down trying to find Pete Hegseth. Depending on whose phone number comes first, I could have been put on it because I have Pete Hegseth's image, I have Pete Hegseth's name, right? I'm changing it back. I'm not going to keep it just to show you how easy it is to do.
Yeah.
Right? So unless you go in and you really click and you verify that the phone numbers are the right phone numbers, it is very easy to add someone incorrectly. Now, the difference is, have you ever been added to some random person's group text?
Yeah, you bet. And you're like, WTF, what is this? It's like, whoa. Even family ones, it's like
all the time. I got a new phone number. I still have my old phone number. It links to my new phone number, but my new phone number used to have someone attached to it.
Yeah.
It's not a brand new number. Like there aren't a lot of new numbers left that don't have a history. And so to this day, I keep getting random people adding me to group texts. And the first thing I do is I text, hey, wrong person. And I remove myself from it, right? If they call me, say, hey, wrong number, end. I don't sit on the call and pretend to be the person they think I am and engage in conversation. That's what this reporter should have done. Say, this is wrong. I shouldn't be in this.
Yeah.
Remove himself.
As an American, I think it would be I would have the onus to say, maybe perhaps I shouldn't be in this national kind of security chat. And out of honesty and integrity, I remove myself from it. Right? We're talking about the information of the nation, things that people don't need to know. Where's the love for America just by saying, you know what? I'm in the wrong place, guys. I'm in the wrong place. So my first thinking is well, you've got to fix that right now. You've got to make sure that all the correct people are added to the right stuff. Maybe you don't use Signal. Maybe you have to use one of the government supplied chat channels. I don't know why they're using Signal in the first place for some of this. That I have a problem with by itself.
Yeah.
And then second, is this a setup? Were they trying to find a leak? Because it was a staffer and it wasn't the person there. So it makes me wonder if there's another layer to this.
That's the other layer of this. They're calling for Mike Waltz's head because if you look at the first message on here, it says, like, this is the screenshot from Jeffrey Goldberg. Michael Waltz added you to the group, right? So they want Michael Waltz's head, but more likely than not, this was a staffer setting up this group.
Yeah.
And then Mike Waltz coming in afterwards. Now, at the end of the day, the buck stops with him, right? The buck stops with the president. But at the end of the day, I highly doubt this was Mike Waltz, like sitting on the toilet, scrolling through Signal and saying, okay, let's plan a war. I got him. Yeah, no, this was his staffers setting it up and then bringing the principals in. Shandy Pants says that Telegram is similar. She gets catfished by fake Max McGuire's. That to me is crazy. I'm not even that active on Telegram anymore. And there are still people pretending to be me. That is always, I find that so funny.
That's awesome.
But so the real question is the way that the law works around classified information. Let's operate under the assumption that Goldberg is right, that this is classified. Not even getting to the part where he hit publish, right? Which is a big no-no. If you were to, basically the way the law works is you aren't generally punished for receiving information. Like the government can't punish you for knowing what you know. Mm-hmm. You're punished for how you receive it and how you share it. So generally it's, if you're accessing something you shouldn't be accessing, well, then you get punished for that. If you remove classified information from its proper place of custody, let's say you're carrying a folder and you leave it on a park bench, you removed it from from its proper place of custody, you're to blame for leaving it on the park bench. Someone isn't to blame for coming to that park bench, picking up and saying, what's this, right?
Yeah.
They're not suddenly illegally in possession of classified information. Now, where it gets really weird is if on that folder it says classified, do not
Top
open,
secret.
top
Whatever it
secret,
says. Right.
and you know you're not supposed to look at it, the act of opening it can be argued that you've now done the breach, right? If it's a sealed envelope, the opening it, knowing what's in it. Now, if it's a plain white envelope, you open it, right?
Yeah.
So the question is, this Goldberg guy in this chat, it didn't start out with classified information. He gets added to it allegedly under no fault of his own, right? That's not a crime for someone to accidentally put you in a group chat. The question is, does it become a crime the minute he sees something that he thinks is classified and he scrolls down to keep reading?
Okay, just to clarify, if I was to just pick, I'm the guy that picks that stuff up and I take it home, am I in violation of law just for possessing potentially classified information? So is that something like I got to worry about? Like, somebody sets you up, you walk by, you pick it up, you take it home. Is that the crime itself? Is that the first step, right?
So it really depends on the intent and what you do with it, right? Opening the envelope is a lot different than keeping it closed. Bringing it home and saying, "Oh, I'll drive to the FBI headquarters on the way to work tomorrow." That's a lot different than bringing it home and scanning it into your computer, right?
Sure.
There's a big difference. So with Goldberg, he's on it, right? He's in this conversation, shouldn't be there, doesn't pipe up and say, hey, I'm not supposed to be here, doesn't remove himself, sits there and spies on it, basically spies on it.
That feels that way, yeah.
It could be argued that the act of him scrolling down to read more is no different than opening the envelope.
Wow.
And it can be argued that the minute he went on his phone at this, what he believes to be classified information, and hits the screen capture button, that is the equivalent of opening the envelope and scanning it into your computer. And if his phone, let's say, what if his phone is connected to the cloud? If he has an Android, what if he has Google Photos? If he has an iPhone, what if he has iCloud? Was that screenshot put in the cloud? Because then you argue that you've taken classified information out of its proper place of custody, right? Into a place you're not supposed to have it. He's arguing he has some protections to hit publish. That's not the same as putting it in the cloud where some other company's IT workers would have access to it if they really wanted to go into it. There's no real clean way to do this. And even if he bobs and weaves and narrowly threads that needle of the Pentagon Papers Supreme Court case, I guarantee you he broke the law getting there. By screenshot it, that's duplicating. He's duplicating it.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, I
putting it in the cloud, telling people about it.
All right, so him possessing it, not a problem. The moment he copies it, it becomes a problem. All right, now what happens
when he shares it? It becomes a problem.
So what happens if I'm a reporter now and I say I'm gonna publish the Pentagon Papers, right? I'm gonna sit there and make sure everybody knows this. What protections sit there for a journalist? I mean, I know the classified materials generally don't protect the journalist, but this feels an awful lot like he's got a case to say, I didn't steal this. This wasn't a hack. I didn't walk in and pull this up. Boom. Put it on the internet for everyone to see.
The way that the Supreme Court case works is if you receive it and you don't know where it came from, right? You can say it was anonymous, just showed up at my door. Or if it's a whistleblower, you have certain protections. I'm not all that convinced, even if he was added to the group chat all on his own. The minute he realized I'm not supposed to be here, and he stayed, and he scrolled to read more, and he screenshotted to capture it, right? I'm not convinced that's legal. If he's on there and he just happens, let's say he happens to be at a restaurant and the table next to him, they're talking about classified information. Big no-no. It's not his fault he could hear it, right?
Yeah.
It's not his fault he could hear it. And if you're a reporter, you could go on the news and say, hey, I heard people talking about this.
Yeah.
Right? He went on the news. I have a clip where he was generally talking about what he saw without sharing it. So giving descriptives about what he experienced is not the same thing as screen capture, upload to the cloud, push print to publish to the World Wide Web. Here's him describing, which generally would be legal, him describing his experiences.
Here and
hold on.
not disclosed.
Here we go.
What?
Read and saw. I will describe them to you. The specific time of a future attack, specific targets, including human targets, meant to be killed in that attack, weapon systems, even weather reports, or, that the government is I don't know why Hexet was sharing it with everybody. I mean, the precise detail, and then a long section on sequencing. This is going to happen. Then that is going to happen.
That, what he's doing here is legal. It is not his fault that he was put in this. It is not his fault generally that he learned about things from people who put him in a chat that he wasn't supposed to be in, right? Up until this point, the criminality lies with the people who added him to the chat, right?
Damn.
Mike Waltz or Mike Waltz's staffer, most likely, adding him to the chat was negligence. You're behaving negligently with stuff you know will probably contain classified or even sensitive material, right? So up until this point, he's fine. What the Trump administration then did is said, BS, you're lying. That's not what was in it. There was no war plans. BS. And he decided to hit publish and say, you know what? They're lying. Here's what I have. In the act to basically prove that the Trump administration was lying, or at the very least not being 100% truthful, he committed a crime. Like, there's no exception within the Espionage Act to prove that a press secretary is lying. Like, that's not an exception, right? It's not an exception whatsoever.
Oh, okay. So the staffer are, I want to start looking at them. I'm thinking to myself, did they do this on purpose, or did they not do this on purpose? Because there's a lot of anti-Trump hate, and they love any story they could generate. So was the staffer being negligent, or were they being on the offense? I'm trying to think of a word. Like, did they do it with malice? Right? I mean, was it intended to cause harm?
No. I mean, yeah, that's the question. The interesting thing is he's on TV saying, why would they're sharing weather reports. Why would they share a weather report?
It's super important.
What he brought up, what Pete Hegseth said was, weather is favorable. Like, come on. That, if you're going to launch planes in the air, you say, yeah, now's a good time to go. Because what they were debating was, do we do it now? Do we do it later? Do we do it in a month? Do we do it in a week? Oh, we're doing it now. Weather's favorable. 11:44 Eastern. Weather's favorable. 12:15 Eastern. F-18s launch. 13:45 trigger based. 14:10 more F-18s. 14:15 strike drones. 15:36 second strike starts with Tomahawks launched. And JD Vance says, I'll say a prayer for victory. Now that is what's very interesting is you look at this when this was actually taken. This screenshot was taken 19 minutes after it happened. So the idea that Goldberg only shared this to call out the liars, right? I mean, it'd be one thing if the White House lied. He went back into it and screenshotted it then to say, hey, no, they're lying. Here, we're going to hit publish. He screenshot this in real time at the time.
She's a reporter.
He screenshot this. He screenshot this before the bomb had dropped.
Holy sh! He was in possession of classified information, and if he screenshot it and it was sitting on his phone at the time before the strike, like that's a buy a lawyer moment. Yeah,
and listen, he can say like, "Hey, I heard this." He could tell people that. Because listen, you can't criminalize what he hears and what he shares, right? But the act of screenshotting it and tucking it away for a rainy day, I guarantee it's in the cloud somewhere. Guarantee it. Guarantee it's in the cloud. Guarantee it's on some server it shouldn't be in. The irony is the Trump administration, since it's been published, is saying, oh no, this is old news. It's not classified. Strike is over, right? Not classified.
Yeah, because they can cancel it.
But because he hit the screenshot before the strike happened, it was at the very least sensitive information.
So
at some level of classification. So even if he's not breaking the law by publishing it now, because the Trump administration is saying, hey, it's not classified, which, by the way, isn't all that different than what they said with Hillary Clinton. Sorry, there was no classification header. Also, it was retroactively declared unclassified. I've been posting this everywhere that the liberals are trying to say fire Hegseth, because that was the Hillary Clinton defense, right?
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, it wasn't marked classified. And they asked them at a later date, was that classified? I said, no, it shouldn't have ever been classified. So that's the defense, right?
Yeah.
If you were jumping through hoops saying that Hillary Clinton did nothing wrong, I don't want to hear you strictly reading the Espionage Act for a signal message.
Hey, so what if he's sitting there and he's asking colleagues about what he's heard now? And he says to him, listen, I got a bunch of classified stuff here, or at least I think it is. Can I read it to you and see what you think about it? Or can I share it with you? I mean, does he call his lawyer? Like sharing it with the lawyer at that point? I mean, is that still moving the classified information? Because
sharing with the lawyer is generally okay because you want to say, hey, is this allowed? You got to tell the lawyer, show the lawyer what you have. Again, it is not illegal for him to know something and for him to tell people what they know. He is not the one with the security clearance. If you have the security clearance, then it's a crime to share the information you know with other people who aren't supposed to know. He's on the outside. He heard it. He's sharing it, right? It's generally not illegal. It's the act of screenshotting it and the act of sharing the screenshot. Because right now there are court cases which ironically have been assigned to the same judge going after Trump on the Tren de Aragua deportations. Surprise, he got this case too, challenging that these are government records.
You're kidding. How the...
Boasberg. Random. He got it.
Bullshit.
Yeah, completely random. Have you actually looked into that? It's actually a bit weird because the lawsuit, just to take a brief pause on these documents, the lawsuit on the Foreign Enemies Act, Tren de Aragua, deporting the terrorists, that was filed as a emergency order. And under the rules, an emergency order is supposed to be heard by whoever the emergency judge is that day. Basically, it's like an on-call at a hospital for a doctor, right? You're on call, go home, but don't drink and stay awake, or at least keep your phone on so that if we need you, come in. That's basically what these on-call judges are. There was an on-call judge that day for emergency motions. The emergency motion challenging Trump's deportation was not given to the emergency judge. It was given to Boasberg. He was not the emergency judge that day. So there is an argument to be made that he never should have been assigned this whatsoever, because there's no paperwork trail explaining why it would go to him instead of the emergency judge. So that's crazy. Now you have this random assignment too of this case. But go back to the documents. There's a case before him, which I actually think is a reasonable argument that these are government records. Of course, they're government records. They should be government records, and they need to be preserved. Now, the people filing this lawsuit have no right to see those records. But generally, I think it's fair to say, hey, we think these are records. They need to be preserved, and we need to make sure anything else that was done in this manner is preserved as well. So he's got that case too. But what I think the worst part of all of this is, obviously adding this guy shouldn't happen, right? There needs to be, if you're going to continue using this app, which, by the way, CISA, I hate them. They're terrible, but they even have issued government-wide recommendations to use Signal. That Signal is generally acceptable for government use. And oh, by the way, the Atlantic just a few years, described Signal as the gold standard of encrypted messaging and admitted that Trump, Obama, Clinton, Cuomo, and Bill de Blasio and their staff all use Signal. So it was never a scandal to use Signal. It was the gold standard. It's CISA, whatever, recommends it, right? The worst part of all of this, in my mind, is right here. That this message, I believe these are government records, talking about between department heads. Look who's on this list, right? You got Treasury Department, you got Pete Hegseth, you got JD Vance, Mike Waltz, obviously, and that Brian McCormick from the National Security Council. Obviously, these are government records, right? It's set to destroy the records after 1 week.
1 week.
Now, that's not okay. You have to preserve the records. It's fine to have them encrypted so that outside people can't see, but you have to preserve them so that they are preserved, right? Years from now, years and years and years from now, when some grad student sitting in the Trump presidential library, he's going to want to look at these records when he writes his term paper on striking the Houthis, right? That has to still exist. It's by law. It has to still exist. So beyond the unacceptable bit of this guy never should have been added, you need to change the way you do things to make sure you're not just adding people based on their initials and verifying that they are real people, right? Beyond that, you can't have the messages deleting. This isn't Snapchat. You can't have government records getting erased.
Go away.
Yeah.
I mean, you may have to go back and look at them for any legal cases.
Yeah.
You know, the historical record. I mean, just destroying those records is also a crime, isn't it? I mean, it's kind of interesting. I never thought about the destruction piece.
It's the difference was that intentional, or is that just the base setting that they had on their phone from before they entered government? Because many conservatives have used Signal in the Trump sphere, right? Because very worried about who's spying on you, who's listening. Even if you're doing nothing wrong, you just don't want to deal with it, right? So it's entirely possible that was just the pre-existing setting. That is very different than someone going in and hitting the button to make sure that it gets deleted. But that needs to get changed, right? And obviously these weren't deleted. But that's why they had that lawsuit, to see if any others were. But yeah, they're trying to make a big deal out of this. And other than the fact that this guy never should have been added, other than the fact that he should have just removed himself and piped up and said, "Hey, I'm in the wrong chat." And other than it should have been deleted, there's not a whole lot there.
No, you're talking about what would be one strike on probably a target of opportunity. You know what I mean? This is something that could have been put together in minutes, but can be taken apart in minutes too, right? I mean, just because you've had it planned doesn't mean you can't say, "Oh, we're scrapping it."
Yeah.
Suddenly we didn't like something here, or this person wasn't there. There were no specific names, were there? I mean, was any of that changed?
So they didn't list. Obviously, it's Yemen, right? They said the Houthis, so it's but Yemen's a country, and that doesn't necessarily mean you can't watch a single country. Like, there's no specific places. There was one guy described, I believe, as like the head bomb maker, who, if you know enough about it, you probably could have deduced who that was, talking about where his girlfriend lives, that building. So if you knew about his personal life and his girlfriend and where she lives, you might have been able to deduce where one hit was going to be. But the interesting part about all of this is the Atlantic is screaming, "Oh, this was terrible. The Houthis, America's enemies, could have gotten this," right? Soldiers could have been at risk. Well, the question is, why would we have to worry about classified information being sent to our enemies if just one reporter was on it? Like, what does that say about the reporter, right?
Yeah.
What does that say about the belief in the journalism industry? That the fear is that our enemies could have learned about this and soldiers could have been put on. I don't think soldiers would have been put on in harm's way, because it didn't say where the aircraft carriers were. Yeah. It didn't say where the destroyers were, right? It didn't say where. It just said when it's happening. And anyone with binoculars would be able to see when planes were coming off if they were in the right area.
It's more like chatter instead of specifics. You ever heard people say that? We've heard some
Yeah.
chatter out there by terrorist groups. Like this is kind of a chatter moment. You're not getting anything that's concrete, which makes me think that there's more layers to this than they're letting on. I just got a feeling like there's something attached to this information, and they want to know who, how, and why. Like who got it? Why did they get it? And I know they've been, they've picked pretty much pegged the staffer for doing it, but if I really want to find somebody who's acting as a mole in my organization,
Yeah.
right? You can definitely put out some information that's just chatter. Maybe it's
Yeah.
real, maybe it's not. And then some out of nowhere, a reporter gets it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it just it smells like an op. That's all I can say.
It does. It does. So the interesting thing is one of the early stories about this was that it included naming a CIA source asset, revealing his identity. And that reporting was completely bullshit because it was just each of the principals here naming their best staff point of contact. So agency heads naming which staff member should be the point of contact on this was blown out of proportion to be revealing a CIA asset's name. Well, no, he's just the chief of staff. We all know his name. It's
Could you
not
imagine?
secret.
Could you imagine being the reporter and thinking that you're about to make your career here, right? All on some really kind of benign information. Sure, it was a leak, we'll say, but there's just no here. I mean, we saw Hillary Clinton do worse with a server in her house,
Yeah.
right? An unprotected server. And this is one message through a signal. So I mean, it was unless you purposefully shared it to other people's, uh,
Gotta button it
it's
up.
yeah, you got to. I mean,
Gotta button up.
but
The difference here, though, between Hillary
encryption
Clinton's
though.
server is that Hillary Clinton operated a server in a closet and she had a skiff in her house where she had a fax machine. And this is 100% provable. On one instance, she received classified documents on the classified fax machine in her skiff, secure compartmentalized information facility, skiff, in her house. Basically, you can't hack it, can't surveil it, whatever. Place where you can safely consume classified information. She gets the fax to her fax machine and she's not home. So she tells her cleaning lady to go in and get it for her.
Yeah.
That is criminal. Knowingly giving someone access to classified information when you know that they don't have a security clearance, that is criminal. This accidentally putting the wrong JG in the chat is not the same as the Secretary of State knowingly having her cleaning lady go into a secure facility to collect classified information for her. Very different. Very different. And as long as we live in a world where Hillary Clinton, nothing happens to her, you can't do a thing to these people. Retrain them, right? Slap on the wrist, make them say they're sorry, go through the trainings, make sure it never happens again. But the left calling for Pete Hegseth's head, saying he needs to resign. He didn't invite the guy.
No.
He had no reason to know it wasn't a secure group.
They want him gone. They're looking for any little thing to try to get him to resign or create scandal, right? Because that's pretty much all the Democrats have left here, or at least the swamp apparatus, right? Let's try to make something look unfavorable. Even if they're little things like this. And I'm going to predict there's going to be more of these because if this is not by the liberal side of things, or at least the Democrats, then you're going to see more of it. You're going to see all these little things showing up. How did I get on this list? And then somebody looks bad. They're going to lose face. I mean, that's the only tool they have left is just deception. I think that's what we're going to see moving forward.
I think we're going to see more of it. That's why they need to have the training because it is so easy. I showed it earlier. We'll put it on the screen again. By the way, everyone, hit the thumbs up, hit the like button, follow, subscribe to us. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on X. Please do like, subscribe, share, all that fun stuff. Help us grow the show. I showed earlier how insanely easy it is to change your Signal name. Just change it to P. Hegseth, right? And the risk now is Signal basically pulls all the phone numbers in your contact history and then assigns whatever name that user has created on their side in their Signal app with their
No.
phone number. Yes, that's the
Oh
vulnerability.
no.
That's the vulnerability here, right? So if I'm still Pete Hegseth right now until I change it after the show. If for whatever reason Mike Waltz had my phone number in his phone that he's using to create this, right? If he did,
Yeah.
he would go in and I would be selectable as Pete Hegseth. That's the real vulnerability, because a lot of these, I'm not saying that that Goldberg did it, but a lot of reporters are in the phones of these high ranking people, right? They communicate with them. They give them interviews, exclusives, tips, things like that. I bet you there's going to be reporters who know that they're in positions like this and are going to go into Signal and change their name to hopefully get added. That probably would be fraud if you do it with the intent on getting into classified discussions.
Well, yeah, I'm proving that would be tough, but yeah, like it wouldn't be hard to accomplish that. It'd be
Not
really
what
easy. I mean, that's kind of scary. I wonder if Signal's panicking, right? They're sitting there, the techies are like, okay, so maybe we make that a little bit harder. You know what I mean? Maybe there's more training, better training.
There's got to be a way to have approved users so that you verify that this is the right person, rather than just like the way it looks. If you do it on your phone, is I cross out all these people so I don't know who's all my contacts. But you want to, this is what happens after you create a group chat, select members. You're just selecting. And again, this is based on what that user has put in on their Signal app.
Yes.
So right here, AA, that's a person whose first name starts with A, last name starts with A. Their name's here, AA. That person could become Pete Hegseth.
Yeah.
Right? It's really easy to do. So there's got to be a way. Frankly, I'd say get off a Signal. But if there isn't an alternative, how do you loop together all of these people all over the country or even all over the globe? I think one of the people in this was in Russia, which is why you have to do it through a secure encrypted message service. Because if you're talking with world leaders who are abroad, you don't want their communications being intercepted.
Yeah.
And that's one of the real strengths of Signal, is that unless you're invited in, you can't know what's going on, which is funny because they did invite him in. They completely busted the one line of security. What I found interesting, though, is JD Vance. So he's obviously very supportive of Trump, but I found it interesting to read what he was saying, that he was a little bit against doing this, at least at that time. And I'll go ahead and read it for everyone listening to the audio version. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the audio edition of the podcast. We put out audio editions so that you can listen as you go about your day. Everywhere you can find audio podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, Audible, all great places. Here's what JD Vance said in this group chat. Team, I am out for the day doing an economic event in Michigan, but I think we're making a mistake. 3% of U.S. trade runs through the Suez. 40% of European trade does. There's a real risk that the public doesn't understand this or why it's necessary. The strongest reason to do this, as POTUS said, is to send a message, but I'm not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I'm willing to support the consensus of the team and keep these concerns to myself, but there's a strong argument for delaying this a month, doing the messaging work on why this matters, see where the economy is, etc. Hegseth says, VP, let me zoom in so people can read it. I understand your concerns and fully support you raising with POTUS important considerations, most of which are tough to know how they play out. Economy, Ukraine, peace, Gaza. I think messages is going to be tough no matter what. Nobody knows who the Houthis are, which is why we would need to stay focused on Biden failed and Iran funded. Waiting a few weeks or month does not fundamentally change the calculus. Two immediate risks on waiting. This leaks and we look indecisive. Israel takes an action first, or Gaza ceasefire falls apart and we don't get to start this on our own terms. We can manage both. We are prepared to execute, and if I had the final go or no-go vote, I believe we should. This is not about the Houthis. I see this as two things: restoring freedom of navigation and core national interest, and reestablish deterrent, which Biden cratered. Then we get JD Vance.
Good Lord. I mean, this is pretty thoughtful stuff. Like, this is intriguing.
Yeah, wow. And it's all fair. JD Vance, Pete, so here he is again. Pete Hegseth if you think we should do it, let's go. I just hate bailing Europe out again. let's let's just make
Wow.
sure our messaging is tight here. And if there are things we can do up front to minimize risk of Saudi oil facilities, we should do it. P. Hegseth, I fully share your loathing of European freeloading. It's pathetic. But Mike is correct. We're the only ones on the planet on our side of the ledger who can do this. Nobody else even close. The question is timing. I feel like now it's a good time as any, given POTUS directive to reopen shipping lanes. I think we should go, but POTUS still retains 24 hours of decision space, as I heard it, President Muscat. So that's interesting. I mean, we're learning a little bit about Trump's decision-making process. It looks like he anytime they're going to do this, he wants 24 hours to decide, which I think is interesting. I don't think that many, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, let me sleep on it, right? But it sounds like this is a standing order that any kind of big operation like this has to go to him at least 24 hours in advance. So he has that 24 hours to make a decision.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting.
I think, yeah, I agree with that completely. And I'm also really shocked that JD Vance is so thoughtful on what's going on in the world. I mean, when I hear him make those kinds of statements, I'm thinking this guy could be president.
Yeah.
I really do. Like, he could be running the show. And at least he's putting some thought and concern. He's putting the message out there, and he's getting a dialogue started. I doubt this happened in the Biden White House.
Oh, definitely.
When they wanted strikes, they were just like, let's do it.
Definitely. And honestly, be fair, I don't think you're getting that kind of stuff from Trump either. I think Trump is top down. Give me the information. I'll make a decision. I don't think he's engaging in this kind of arguing. I think he wants all sides to come to him and him to mediate it and say, okay, 24 hours, I'll give you a go or no go. He probably doesn't wait all 24 hours, but the media is going to run with this, that JD Vance disagreed with Trump.
That would be,
that's going to be the headline.
And the thing is if you're a real leader and you're a real business person, you want a voice in there, not echoing what you're saying. Because if it's just an echo chamber, nobody knows, what a new outcome could be. I am really I'm impressed by JD Vance's stance there. And then the way him and Hegseth at least discuss it. I mean, it sounded not only professional, but extremely thoughtful. I don't see how this is a problem for the White House at all. But, you know what I mean?
They're going to try and basically make this about their JD Vance disagrees. JD Vance disagrees. At the end of the day, he's like, we'll do it. I just wonder if he knows that this is helping Europe. and he doesn't want to do that right now. They can't stand Europe. That's the other big takeaway. No, if you are in a position of power to make decisions, you always want people to have the other side of it. In Israel, in Israeli intelligence, they actually have a unit. It's called the Devil's Advocate Unit.
Yeah.
And anytime, the reason is that in the past, they've had complete consensus in intelligence by saying like, oh no, they're not going to invade us. They're not going to. And then they almost got wiped out and pushed into the sea by the Arab armies. So the Devil's Advocate Unit exists to basically, no matter what happens, whatever operation is being planned, there has to be one guy who is the devil's advocate. Even if he thinks the operation should go, he has to, in good faith, argue the opposite side of what if. Wow. If everyone thinks that the operation is going to be a success, he has to say, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? Because they can't have unanimous agreement. By rule, they can't, right? So Trump knows this. He doesn't want just a bunch of yes men. And JD Vance said he raised it to Trump. And I think Trump probably said, yeah, that's interesting, but we're going to do it anyway, which is fine. And JD Vance was fine with that. The problem is when you truly believe that you're smarter than the person above you and you don't take no for an answer. When you don't take, oh, thank you, that's a really interesting thought. I think it has a lot of merit, but we're still going to do it this way. If you hear that and you go back and you're still seething, that's the problem. When you truly believe that you know better. JD Vance, he disagreed, but he said, you know what, I'll go with the team. As long as he knows we're basically bailing out Europe, he's okay with that. That's fine.
I mean, there's so many, the way this thing is leaked and all these messages, that what I get from my big takeaway from this whole thing is the message it just sent to Europe. Because in that leak, it says, "There's nobody else in the world that can do this.
Yeah.
We're the
Yeah.
only ones."
Yeah. The
That should
British
be a
probably could.
shock.
The British probably could. If they had assets
Sure.
in the area, they could probably have, probably not to the scale, the extent. Like you see this timeline, Hex is like, strike team number 1 launches this one. Strike team number 2 is 10 minutes later. Strike team number 3 is from this area 5 minutes later. Britain probably would have had one strike team.
Yeah.
One strike team and one volley of cruise missiles. The French probably could have done it, but they probably also would have apologized afterwards.
Yeah, we're sorry we did it.
Yeah, Canadians definitely would have apologized.
Yeah, but
Other
really,
than
it's a
that,
slap in the face. It sends a message.
and you'll notice what he said. He didn't say we're the only people who can do this. He said we're the only ones on this side of the ledger. So there are bad guys who could have done it, but they've chosen not to. Like Russia could have taken out the Houthis.
Sure.
Why would they? They're funding Iran, and Iran's funding the Houthis. Why would they?
Yeah.
Why would they kill their client? You know what I mean? China could have taken them out, but
Sure.
China likes the chaos a little bit.
Yeah.
Why would they do it? Right? There are other actors. Saudi Arabia could have done it, but that would probably provoke a land war with Yemen. They don't want that.
I know, right?
Right? So there's other people, but on our side, I thought on our side of the ledger was an interesting way of describing it. Basically, I'm reading this and I'm not getting the takeaway of like fire them all. I'm getting a lot of more interesting takeaways from this, but that's what the media is running with. Fire them all, fire them all, fire them all. I'm sorry, retrain them, make sure it never happens again.
Yeah.
But no, don't neuter your entire defense and intelligence arm. Cut it off and start from scratch 4 months into an administration. Absolutely not. For a successful operation? No.
Yeah. I know.
No.
It stinks, man. It stinks. I think, I don't know. There's somebody probably did it on purpose. I mean, I really hope it was an accident, because that's something that can be dealt with, right? But I always think that there's always somebody out there with Trump derangement syndrome trying to undermine the entire thing all the time, and that's why these leaks happen, right? In the back of my head, I'm still thinking like, oh, he did this on purpose.
Knowing that he's just in there as JG makes me think this is an accident.
Why?
Right?
Why JG? I mean,
because haven't you ever like scrolled through your phone and like you have two friends named Adam and you text the wrong one? That happens to me with you.
Assuming I've got more than one friend here.
No, that happens to me regularly with you, and I stop myself before I do it because Josh Barton is ahead of you alphabetically.
Yeah.
Right?
I've done
our old friend, he's involved with DCF Guns. He's on my phone. So when I just type in like Josh, I have to stop myself from texting him because he's just front and center, right? And he's just in there as Josh.
And you know what? When they're filling out Signal, I bet it just autofilled. They saw it and they're like, oh, there you go.
Yeah.
And
JG. Yeah.
I got Janice Garfunkel in there, right? Pretty sure that's
the only kind of deceptiveness and malice came from Goldberg. Everyone else made a mistake that you can explain and train away. How do you train away a snake journalist getting invited into a eyes only chat that he knows he's not supposed to be in, actively scrolling to consume all the information, and then screenshotting it in real time? It's not like he went back to screenshot it later. In real time, he's like, oh, this is gold. I'm keeping this. Oh, they let me in to read classified information. Well, he screenshotted classified information. He put it in the cloud. That's a problem. I keep saying he put it in the cloud. I'm going to assume he put it in the cloud because most of us have some cloud storage in some way, shape, or form.
If he's a journalist, I would hope he'd have a cloud storage, because sometimes you just want things saved. You always want that backup. Good journalists back up everything they do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if he knew what he was looking at here, he should have bailed. He should have bailed.
Yeah.
Right? It's on him. At the end of the day, everybody wants to blame Hegseth and everyone else.
He was just in it.
Goldberg.
And listen, the way this works, maybe it was Mike Waltz sitting on the toilet saying, let's just start a chat. I highly doubt it. I think it was probably one of his staffers setting it up and him coming on. I don't think you ruin that staffer's life over it, but you definitely have to implement some training, some rules to make sure this never happens again. All, I would probably get everyone a different phone
Yeah.
for this, right? Not use it on the phone that has anything else. If you're going to have something like this, it has to just have the principles on it, right? So
Yeah.
you don't have the risk of inviting someone else from your contacts. They've got to fix something. But no, this idea that you fire Hegseth, why? He had no reason to believe that it was compromised. Like, it's not
Yeah.
his fault. He didn't create the group. He didn't invite the reporter. He's talking, right? If that reporter wasn't there, he's 100% allowed to do this. And as we just had testified before Congress, this is an approved method of communications.
Clear. One of the first things that happened
Wow. Why does it keep doing this?
as CIA director was signal was loaded onto my computer at the CIA, as it is for most CIA officers. One of the things that I was briefed on very early, Senator, was by the CIA records management folks about the use of signal as a permissible work use. It is. That is a practice that preceded the current administration to the Biden administration.
Well, that's what they don't want to hear.
Now, again, the problem in all of this is that this chat was technically, even if accidentally, set up to destroy itself after a week.
Yeah.
That has to stop, right? That can't be okay, because then you can't, like, I guarantee the CIA records department didn't say all good on just self-destructing your communications. But no, this is a verified way of communicating. The problem is there's the human element to it of either Mike Waltz or his staffer making a bonehead decision to bring in JG without verifying who JG actually was. And I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say this wasn't intentional, putting a journalist on. If it was intentional, then it becomes really interesting, because then you wonder, was this journalist deliberately being read into this for some reason? But I doubt that, because he's an anti-Trump journalist. He's a hoaxer, and the like.
But I mean, if you look at him, you kind of almost assume that if he's given some information that would make Trump look bad, he would print it up, right? He'd be outside cheering about it, and that's what we got. So is that what it is? You know, I feel set up. I feel set up all the way.
Yeah,
it's either them or Trump. I mean, you know,
I find it very, very, I'll say, interesting. I like saying that when I don't want to, like, denigrate someone, but that while Goldberg is out there screaming, they let me access classified information. They let me access classified information. Everything he's done with that classified information, after basically saying, I know I possess classified information. It's saying, I know I possess classified government records. He has then proceeded to break every law related to the transfer, sharing, and publication of government records. Wow. Can't have it both ways. You can't say I'm allowed to do whatever I want with this, and also it was a classified government record. You can't have it both ways. If you find the classified government record, you're not supposed to share it with people. You're just not. So we'll see.
If you love America, don't do it.
And that's really the end of it, right? If a stranger puts you into a group chat that you don't belong in, you don't know them, you don't care about them at all, but you give them the benefit of the doubt, saying, hey, wrong number, so they don't think they're talking to their friend and it's really just going into you, right? You do that for a stranger.
Yeah.
Why is it that this journalist wouldn't do that for the entire cabinet of the United States?
Three words.
Yeah.
Trump derangement syndrome.
Well, yeah, he has more empathy, probably has more empathy for the random stranger that calls him with a wrong number than he does with making sure the government isn't leaking those secrets by accident. Give you the final word.
Everybody makes mistakes, but let's not allow the Democrats to clutch their pearls on this one, because I'm still angry about the server. I'm still angry about Benghazi. I'm still angry about Afghanistan withdrawal. And this this is the thing that they're going with. I smell bullshit.
Yeah. I said I was going to give you the last word, but it just reminded me. I'm just going to pipe in here. I find it very interesting that this leaked with perfect timing right before all of these principles just so happened to already be appearing before Congress. They didn't spin up these hearings since this dropped. They were already supposed to be appearing before Congress. So I think expect that in the coming weeks, months, as Trump administration officials are before Congress. Expect scandals to pop up right before they're slated to go in so that they have to testify to kind of expand the news cycle.
Interesting.
Well, that's it for this edition of the podcast. If you like it, please do subscribe. Lots of people watching us for the first time. Give us a thumbs up, give us a like, comment, share. We're on YouTube, we're on Rumble, we're on X, so please do subscribe. We also have the audio edition of the podcast. Make it as audio friendly as possible. It's available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Podbean, Audible. We try and make this audio friendly so you can listen during your commute, as you're going about your day, doing chores, whatever. We try and make this an audio friendly show. That's it for this edition. My name is Max McGuire.
I am Josh Hammerling.
Remember, the fight to take back our country is not over yet, but the only way we win is if we all stand up and fight together. See you next time.
See ya.